So, let's talk about collaboration. It's the lifeblood of how we work today, right? But man, it can be a massive security headache. Every single time you invite a guest, a partner, a contractor into your environment, you run headfirst into the same critical question. How in the world do we enforce our security rules on identities and devices that we just don't own? Okay, let's get this figured out.
All right, here's our game plan. We're going to start with the core problem. Then we'll dig into how guest authentication actually works under the hood. From there, we'll pinpoint the big catch with conditional access, sort out what works from what doesn't, and then build a practical playbook you can actually use. By the end, you're going to have a whole new way of thinking about this.
All right, first up, the guest access dilemma. At its heart, this whole thing really boils down to one simple but kind of tricky question that every single one of us has to answer. This is it. This is the whole ball game. Your security posture is built on rules that demand compliant, managed, healthy devices. But that partner who needs your SharePoint file, they're probably working from a personal laptop at a coffee shop. So how do you bridge that gap? This is the fundamental blind spot we've got to deal with. To really solve this, we first have to get a crystal clear picture of what's happening behind the scenes when a guest tries to sign in. I promise, if you nail this concept, everything else is going to click right into place. So in the Microsoft world, what we call a guest is officially a B2B collaboration user. Now, this isn't some new account you have to create and manage. No, it's really just a pointer, a link to their real identity at their own company. They use their own work email and password. This trusted relationship is called federation. You can think of it like you're building security guard accepting the company ID from a trusted partner's building. They trust that the other company did their job verifying the person. And this visual just makes it so clear. Look, the guest proves who they are to their own organization over on their own turf. Once their tenant gives them the thumbs up, they get passed over to your front door. And that is the exact moment, right as they try to step inside, that your conditional access policies wake up and act like a bouncer at a club saying, all right, let's see some ID. So if you remember one thing from this section, make it this phrase. Seriously, this is the key. They authenticate there in their home tenant. We authorize here in our resource tenant. This clean separation of authentication and authorization, well, it's the secret to understanding everything that comes next. Now, we all know conditional access is our number one tool for security, right? It's our if this, then that engine for all things access. But, and this is a big but, when we point it at guest users, there is a massive catch you absolutely have to know about. And this is the gotcha. Your conditional access policy has zero visibility into what's going on in the guest's home tenant. It's totally blind. It can't check if their device is compliant with their company's rules or if their account is flagged as risky over there. It can only judge what it can see from its own perspective, right here, right now, in your tenant. Okay, so what does this blind spot actually mean in practice? Let's get real and break down what signals you can still rely on and which ones you just can't. Getting this right is the difference between having real security and just, security theater. And this table lays it all out perfectly. The stuff that works, it's pretty straightforward. Things like the user's IP address location or the specific app they're trying to hit. Your tenant can see that stuff, so it works. Risk-based policies also work, but, and this is key, only for risks detected in your tenant, like an impossible travel sign-in. And of course, you can still require MFA or just flat out block them. But look at those warnings. Device compliance, that's going to fail almost every time because their device isn't enrolled in your Intune. Same for checking if it's a hybrid join device. Your tenant just can't see those things. This makes it crystal clear. Let's say a partner signs in from their personal MacBook at home. If you have a policy that says block access unless the device is compliant, well, they're getting blocked every time. The right move is to pivot your strategy. Instead of a device check that you can't possibly perform, you enforce a really strong identity check, like MFA, and maybe you limit them to just the web versions of apps. Okay, we get the problem, we know the limitations. So what do we actually do? Let's build an actionable playbook for setting up smart, intentional policies for our guests. Here it is, this is your checklist. First, and this is non-negotiable, put all your guests into dedicated groups so you can target them with specific policies. Then, for those policies, always require your strongest control, MFA. Use terms of use to get a legal attestation from them. And please be super skeptical of trusted location exceptions for guests. Just because they're on a familiar network doesn't mean their device is secure. And finally, use access reviews to clean house regularly, making sure old guests don't keep access forever.
So, after all that, let's just boil this down to a simple, powerful new mental model you can carry with you.
Okay, remember this three-part model. First, authentication happens over there. It's their problem, in their house. Second, authorization happens over here. The second they knock on your door, your rules are the only ones that matter. And finally, the most important takeaway of all, you cannot treat guests like employees. You have to design your policies for them intentionally. You have to prioritize the things you can verify, like their identity, over the things you can't, like their device. It is the only way to do this securely. And that's our deep dive on conditional access for guest and external users. Thanks so much for watching, and remember to keep making progress, actually. I'll see you in the next one.